Hello guys, welcome to lesson number 69 in our drawing series, Drawing Techniques for Beginners. Towards the end of the last lesson, what I said that we were going to be doing was developing the value in these dark shaded areas underneath the wing mirror, and I've actually added a little bit more value around the wing mirror as well. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to start adding some value to the tyre area, excuse me, around the back area, and this portion around here. I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out actually now. It really did pay dividends with us really darkening up some of those very dark areas there. I'm constantly having to take away the value in these shiniest areas. So I'm using my kneaded eraser and my mono zero eraser just to make sure that I am protecting those. So without further ado, I'm going to start off with the HB pencil. I've given these a quick sharpen in the mechanical sharpener. I'm just going to move the reference image over, or slightly underneath, sorry. And I am going to use my paper just underneath my resting hand. I'm going to start now with this tyre. And I'm starting on this inner rim, on the inner edge, because that's the darkest area. If we actually look at this tyre, I guess because there's a kind of indentation that goes in towards the actual wheel itself, the metal part of the rim. So this inner edge is always going to be our darkest, and I'm just going to fade the value out towards the edge of the tyre. Now we have got some detailing in there towards the top here, some lighter tones, which we will get to. I hope you all had a fantastic new year. I can't believe that 2020 is upon us. I'm hoping that 2020 is fruitful for you all, and I hope that you all continue with your art. I know that the Christmas period's rather busy, and it's difficult sometimes to get the pencils out and start working, but hopefully you find some time in the new year. It's been fantastic over on the group seeing some new people actually posting some of their work, and some people that maybe are posting for the first time. It's wonderful seeing some of the earlier projects that we did. Like I said, we're on lesson number 69 now, and I didn't envisage getting to this number when I first started out. I just really wanted to start putting together something that was going to be helpful to a few people. We're around about 4,000 members of the group now. So the top of this tyre in here is slightly darker. We've got the top of the tyre, and then we've got this area here that's catching the light in a slightly different manner. I just need to be cautious of that, making sure that I'm getting as much detail in as I can. That's the idea that we're going for here. I like to pick drawings and reference images that you maybe wouldn't ordinarily choose to do. I know most of the people in the group want to draw animals. That tends to be the general consensus. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the 2B pencil, and I'm just going to darken up some of these indentations, these holes in the wheels where the spokes are leaving big gaps in the wheels, because I can quite easily see there that what I'm going to do is just start to lose some of that contrast. I've put some initial layers down in there of maybe some 2H and HB. I can't quite remember now what we did, how far we've gone. It looks like there's just maybe a little bit of HB in there, but not a huge amount. So I'm just going to redefine these by using my 2B pencil. I'm using this tapered stroke. If this is the first time you visited the channel, go and check out the playlist above. It's called Essential Pencil Skills. That's lessons 1 to 6 of this series. I know it's tempting to just jump straight into the project, but for most people it tends to be counterproductive. It's if you're not 100% certain on the way that we're doing things and why we're doing things. I'm talking through experience here. It took me a while to grasp some of the concepts. I wanted to jump forwards, and I was watching various YouTube channels and things like that, and I was picking up information from here, there and everywhere. And it wasn't until I started doing some online classes and various different methods started to fall into place. But it's very easy to miss out something very, very important that seems unimportant at the time, and it just seems insignificant, but it makes a huge difference as you go along. And one of the things that I really had to go back and relearn was the pressure of the stroke, which is very light. I could make this 2B pencil here go very, very dark. I could press on really, really hard, and I could make a real impression on the paper. Now, the problem with that would be is I'd ultimately be damaging the tooth of the paper, and I wouldn't be able to take any of the value out if I wanted to add areas that were lighter, and I wouldn't be able to erase. Now, I don't remember the last time I had to erase a project, but if need be, I absolutely could do. It's not ever something that I want to do, but I could take my electric eraser to all of this, possibly with the exception of where we've used our coloured pencil. If you cast your mind back to the previous lessons, we really darkened up some of those areas where the air intakes were and the shadowed areas using our Polychromos coloured pencil. Now, with the exception of those areas, because I couldn't erase those now, that's why I was slightly hesitant to go in with that and go that dark. But I'm going to trust the process now, and I haven't had to erase a drawing for probably 2 years, 2.5 years, so I'm not expecting that I'm going to make anything like an error or a series of errors that's going to mean that I need to erase the whole thing. But ultimately, this technique allows us to press rewind, which is a very powerful tool to have in your arsenal. Yes, it's not ideal. We don't want to be undoing 10 hours of work, which is, I guess, where we are at the moment with this project, around about 10 hours. I did spend another couple of hours on this after the last lesson, just really trying to define some of those darker areas. Okay, so I've got an initial layer now of 2B in those recesses. That's just going to give me enough now to work from, just so that as I go around the tyres, going back to my HB now, as I go around these tyres, I'm not going to be losing the definition and then having to make things up as I move on. So just paying attention to the details in these tyres. There are the grooves. I can see the grooves in there that I've mapped out loosely, and it's just looking at how the dark and the light work in those areas. If we look carefully at it, underneath each one of these dark lines there is a lighter line, and that's just showing us the direction that the light's coming from, and it's also showing us that this is an indentation. It's not a line on the tyre, it's actually a hole. These are grooves, and you can often see that because there is always going to be a lighter area it's paying attention to those things. Now this tyre is darker than this edge of the bodywork there. We can see that, so that's something that we need to bear in mind as we go along, that we need to maintain. But because I'm getting an initial layer now in on the tyre, it means that I'm going to be able to keep it one step ahead in terms of value from the surrounding area. Even if I were to go over the part of the car, this area here with the HB, I'm still going to be able to keep this area ahead in terms of value just by using the HB on it, because as we layer we produce more value, we make it slightly darker. I'm holding the pencil quite a long way away from the tip of the pencil. I'm not bearing down too much on it, and I've got my pencil at an angle. I guess it's in the region of about a 45-degree angle. And after every few strokes, a few dozen strokes possibly, I'm just turning the pencil in my hand. And what this does is it gives us a self-sharpening effect. So I'm hoping, unless I change dramatically what I'm doing here, I don't usually, in one of our videos, end up having to sharpen my pencil. Which is good, it saves you time. Although we've said in previous videos that time isn't something that we're trying to cut down on. This is a hobby for most of us. It's a relaxing way of spending a couple of hours, calming the mind down. So it isn't something that we need to be rushing. We rush around in almost every other facet of our lives. So spending some time to yourself, just taking it easy is certainly one of the more appealing parts of drawing. I guess some people find it stressful. I can remember finding it stressful initially. So much to learn. Where's the light coming from? What's the darkest value? What pencil do I use? But you get there. And one day you'll be able to talk nonsense on a video whilst you're drawing. A little bit like what I'm doing. Although, looking at some of your pictures and some of your drawings that you've done, particularly with some of the projects, it can't all be nonsense that I'm talking. Some of you are really taking some of the lessons on board, and it's fantastic seeing some of your creations coming to life, and it's very pleasing knowing that I've had an impact on that. If you've subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. If you haven't, go and hit the subscribe button and turn the notifications bell on. That's next to the subscription button. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. If you're not into art videos, then great. Thanks for visiting anyway. But if you've stayed with me this long, you must have a slight interest in trying to improve your art. If so, I really would recommend you getting involved with our Facebook group. It's called Tutorial Tuesdays Beginners to Pro. You can post your work, you can post your commissions that you're doing, you can ask questions. When I say we're a really grown-up group, I'm sure there are people in there that aren't, you know, super old, ancient like me, but the conversations tend to be a little bit more constructive, helpful, supportive, and even if you're not posting your work up there, it's just a nice place to visit every now and then and just see some of the comments that people are making and helping one another. So I really would recommend going and checking that out. Okay, I'm going to give this a light brush, and this brushing here is going to give me some value into this lighter area, this area here, and that's going to give me something to work with. Okay, I'm going to take the 2B pencil now. I'm just going to change the orientation of this now. I just need to get these grooves in, because I'm just starting to lose them. I'm not bearing down too hard. I'm layering. I certainly don't want to mark the paper now in terms of the tooth of the paper. I don't want to gouge my pencil tip into that. And there's just that flick. It just flicks off up at where it meets the front of the tyre. So we've got this line coming out, which is sort of horizontal. And then we've got that small flick that just suggests to us that it is moving around a three-dimensional object. Okay. Now, what I was saying to you about the way that the light's hitting it is, if you can see here, underneath our line that we've made, I'm just going to take my Mono Zero eraser and I'm just going to underline those lines that I just made. And straight away now I can see that this is giving us a more dimensional look to it. There we go. Just take any excess rubber away with the brush. Now, hopefully, what we can do now is, with the 2B pencil, we can start to increase the value of this tyre in the areas that we need to. So this inner edge in here is looking to me to be quite dark, or the darkest area. So I'm going to start layering my tapered strokes there first. Just looking for any subtle value change and subtle details. I'm just avoiding those lines as much as I can that we've made, with the 2B pencil, and then those areas that we just took out with the Mono Zero eraser. We're obviously going to be reinforcing those as we go along, but it's the beauty of this layering technique that once you get value in an area, or you take value away from an area, like I was explaining before, you kind of keep the drawing, the area one step ahead or one step below the surrounding areas, and you can maintain that throughout the rest of the project. So just being careful that I'm following the edge of this tyre around. I'm not coming out too far away from this rim. It needs to look realistic, as though it's following that edge. So I'm slightly tempted now to give that another quick brush. And then I'm going to use the HB. I'm going to change the orientation again slightly. And I'm going to use the HB pencil now. Just to get a little bit of a smoother value in there. The beauty with these slightly harder pencils is you can still get some value in there, but just holds the tip of the pencil a little bit better, so you can keep a much sharper point, which is much easier then to get some of these fine details in there. And what I'm looking at here is this kind of edge where those lines, those grooves that we drew, where they just fan out, that also almost fan upwards, just giving us that look of something going around an edge. That area is slightly darker. It's ever so slightly darker than the areas surrounding it. And I guess that's because the light isn't quite hitting that in the same way. So although it's possibly protruding out slightly more than the surrounding areas, because of the angle of it, it is slightly darker along that edge. And this may sound insignificant and that we're almost, you know, being too picky. But I do believe that it's these small areas that really capture that realism. I'm trying to make every drawing that I do slightly better than the last one. So if I can find any opportunity to make this drawing slightly better, I'm going to do that. If I can make it 1% better than the last drawing, and I do that each time I make a new drawing, 100 drawings down the line, and it's 100% better than the ones that we did in the initial stages, which sounds crazy, but we've done 68 lessons now. If you made each drawing 1% better than the last time you did it, you looked for something to improve upon, by 1 small percent, you'd be nearly 70% better now. My dad would have called it resting on your laurels. Don't rest on your laurels. And what he meant by that was, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you can't get better. So just because your drawing is to a standard that you would like, I mean, I look at some of my pictures that I did a couple of years ago and I was absolutely over the moon with them then. I could pick them all out now and improve on them just from things that I've learnt. So never stop trying to improve. Okay, now I definitely need to reinforce those darker zones again. And I'm just going to take the 2B pencil out and I'm just going to layer over the top, following that curve and bend around. And then I'm going to take the kneaded eraser, or the mono zero eraser, sorry, and I'm going to take that underlining light area out again. And it's this process that we're going to rinse and repeat. And I want to give that another brush. use the 2B pencil again just to emphasize that slightly darker zone. And what this is also doing, it's constantly just smoothing out my value. It's getting rid of those little white lines in between where we've possibly not been quite so accurate with our positioning of our lines, how we're laying them down. Now, I'm just going to tap back a little bit of the value towards that inner edge. And if I'm very gentle with this kneaded eraser and I just take off a very light layer, it gives me a nice texture. It gives me a slightly more coarse texture. These tyres, obviously they're made of rubber and they're not brand new tyres by the looks of it, so we're going to have a texture to them, and that texture can be represented by this kneaded eraser just taking some of the value out, and then when I give that a brush, we're starting to get there. I'm going to use my 2H pencil now. I've not used the 2H pencil yet in this zone. 2H pencil is very, very good for blending. I mean, I can go over this entire area now and smooth it out. I'm not pressing on any harder really. And this is probably going to be impossible to see on the video, but I'm just getting a nicer blend. It's making those very light areas that I just took out with the kneaded eraser. It's just dulling them down a little bit because I don't want this to look reflective. Look at the lighter areas on this compared to the actual panels of the car. They're not as bright. I don't want to make these tyres look as though they're shiny and made out of metal. I talk about contrast an awful lot when I'm making these videos, and contrast is one of the most important things that we can look towards trying to achieve. Now, we talk in terms of contrast as in the contrast between the dark and the light areas, but we also need to try and create as much contrast between the textures that we've got available to us. So this slightly rubbery texture compared to the shiny metal surfaces of the rest of the car, then compared to the glass, and then obviously this air intake, which is almost a beehive type of structure, these hexagonal structures in there, they all give me an opportunity to mess around with textures and ramp up the realism. Another brush, and then you guessed it, I'm just going to take the Mono Zero eraser out again. And some of those marks there are too bright, but that's okay because I can brush back in. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. It's not finished. definitely not finished that tyre, but I've got it to a level there now where we can start to think about moving some of this value up towards it, this inner edge of this inner wall, I think they call it, this side wall or inner wall of the tyre towards it, because it's not a white section of our drawing, it's a lighter section. So I'm just filling in some of these just with the 2H pencil, but because of how this tyre is sitting, the light is hitting it differently, so it's giving it a slightly lighter value than the edge we've just been working on. And it's working really, really hard on trying to create many different values. You know, we talk about mid-tone values, highlights, and then your darkest areas. But really, our drawings, if we want to create realism, we don't want to be just working on those 3 areas. We want different value changes within those. So, you know, we could argue that we might have 15 different values. Yes, we ultimately have the top value, the darkest value, and we have our very lightest area, but within that, we've got different levels. And once you start being able to see things like that, it becomes quite fun. The important thing then is really protecting those values as you go along, because it's very easy to lose some of those. I've changed to the HB pencil again now. It's very easy to lose some of those light values, those subtle values, because the graphite moves around so much. And an area that I've paid so much attention to and wanting to try and achieve a very subtle value change in certain areas and have almost a 1 layer of graphite difference is easily lost when I brush the graphite in. So just being aware of these things, and it will come with time. You'll be able to use your pencil in different ways and put your attention on different things. So you can definitely see now, as we're starting to build the value up around this tyre area, that I am starting to lose the definition and the darker areas within these areas of the wheels, these spokes. So that's definitely something that we need to now do. We need to re-establish those dark zones, because once you've lost them, it's hard to get the exact positioning of things again. So in with the 2B. And working from the edge of the rim inwards towards the centre of the wheel, because we know that light is going to be struggling to get into this area more than it is towards the centre of the tyre. So we always start from there, and we just have this ability to give a sense of dimension and added realism. So same thing on this triangular shaped hole. Because of the perspective we're looking at it, it has a slightly different look to it than the one that we were just working on, although they're possibly very similar. I can't tell from the reference image the way that it is. we're just re-establishing our darks. We've got some lovely highlights that we're going to be able to take out of these sections as well. It's the trick with drawing anything that's super reflective and shiny. You look at any shiny object, any metallic object, and you've got a mixture of very, very dark blacks in there, and you've got some extremely bright whites. The darker you can make your darks and the whiter you can make your whites in those zones, the more realism that you are then able to achieve. It makes it look more shiny. I was mentioning on one of the other videos that I made a week or so ago that I keep seeing a certain person pop up on various art groups that does a lot of car drawings, and they're fantastic drawings, but there is no contrast in there. The darks aren't dark and the lights aren't light. Everything's a mid-tone, and it turns what is a fantastically detailed drawing into something that's wishy-washy and really doesn't quite grab your attention. And part of me wants to just grab a 6B pencil, or even the Polychromos coloured pencil, and just go to town on some of the darkest areas. And I think, you know, looking at some of the drawings, if you just spent 20 minutes just really defining some dark areas, it would take it to a completely new level. But that artist, I guess, is on their own journey, and they will no doubt, hey, you know, who am I to tell anyone that what they're doing is not correct? You know, it's art, it's your own interpretation of things. But I just like to see contrast, partly because it's the one thing that I struggled with in the early days. Oh, I'm going to go, if I go into a 2B pencil too early, it's going to go too dark. A 2B pencil is not dark at all. You know, I look back at that now and think, oh my goodness, you know, I could draw the highlight on a baby's face with a 2B pencil now, because I understand that it's not just about the sole pencil, the one pencil that you've used. It's a combination of lots of pencils. Now my dark area is going to have pencil, you know, similar grade to 2B in there, but it's going to have 2B and 4B and HB and 2B and HB and 2B and HB, and I'm going to really go up and down the pencil grades. Okay, let's take a few of the highlights out then. So let's have a look at some of these edges that need just redefining. Just to give me a little bit more of an understanding of where things are again before I lose my way. But I can see that this is going to look quite nice once I get some of my mid values in there, in the spokes of these wheels. Those highlights are looking quite good, if I do say so myself. And we'll give that a quick brush in now. So we've gone over again a little bit. These last couple of videos have been slightly longer. We're at the 40-minute mark. So just a quick recap of what we've been doing. We've started to bring in some value into this tyre now, this rear tyre. We're going to then continue developing the darks and using that process of HB, 2B, taking out some of those lighter areas with our Mono Zero razor, brushing, repeating and rinsing and repeating. That's what I want you to do. So what I'm then going to do for the start of next lesson is I'm just going to start adding a little bit of value into this darker zone around here. That should then give us enough value to play with in this lighter zone up there. And then we can start moving our way down the rest of the car. We're a large portion of the way through this now. It's really quite enjoyable. I'm loving getting involved in some of the details. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm enjoying making it. I can't wait to see how some of you get on with this. I know it's quite a technical drawing and seems like there's a lot to it, but once we've mastered this, I think you'll be really proud of it and you'll have learnt so much, like I'm learning as well. Thanks for supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Find us on Facebook. That's at Tutorial Tuesdays Beginners to Pro. I'm over on Instagram as well, so you can find me on there. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.